Good morning, everybody. Today is Sunday, February 5th, 2023. You are watching or listening to another edition of Forward Maryland. And yes, boys and girls, listeners and viewers, it is our year-end award show from the year of our Lord, 2022. We have an array of a dozen awards. We don't quite have names for these awards. In my post this morning, I hastily called them the Hairy Eyeball Awards, but I think we need to come up with something better. So we'll have to work on that maybe between now and next year's award show, if there is one. Assuming that is, if there is one, being that we do not have Chinese Spy Balloon 2 wreaking havoc with our 5G, our vaccinations, and all the other things, Hunter Biden's laptop and everything else. Steve, the spy balloon was shot down yesterday. What was your fondest memory of the 2 days of Chinese spy balloon 2023 to 2023?
Well, first of all, could I propose that the next balloon we call Chinese Spy Balloon 2 Surveillance Boogaloo or something like that? I don't know. We'll go 80s hip hop beatbox there. But yeah, you want to talk about, if you want to look up the definition of much ado about nothing, this was pretty much it. I mean, for those people who thought that this was the end of the world as we know it, that they were going to get all of our secrets, this just in, folks, they've got satellites. And oh, by the way, haven't we been talking about hacking and hackers and breaking into all kinds of systems for years? If you think this is the best that they've got to do surveillance on our country, go get a Jewish space laser and shoot the damn thing down, okay? The one thing I will say is this is why we have adults in the room. The president clearly said, hey, I ordered it on Wednesday. My military guy said, let's wait till we can get it down good. They got it down when they were supposed to, and they did all the right things. Unlike, our last president who would have said, no, I'm going to do what I'm going to do because I know more than the generals. So this was, to me, a great example of what happens when you have adults in the room. So business got handled.
That was a little incisive for our normal start of show banter. Is it the late opening that's gotten you fired up?
Yeah, that second cup of coffee and the iced tea is flowing strong, baby.
Oh, Lord. We now go to original co-host and today's third presenter, Jason Boone. Jason, what were your favorite memories of the time of the Chinese spy balloon 2023 to 2023?
Oh, gosh, where to start? I mean, it was riveting. And I appreciate how Steve took the measured approach. I'm going to take the unmeasured approach. We should have nuked the thing 3 days ago. I have no idea why this didn't happen. I mean, who's really running this administration? I had sort of a different 80s take on it. I mean, my first thought was, 98 Sich Luftballon now. But
killed. I wondered when that was going to happen. I wondered when that reference was going.
Yes.
I got to give the reference somewhere because, I teach my class, which is like full of Gen Zs, and I make these 80s references. I try to explain who Lee Atwater is, and it's blank stares. So
it's like, ask your parents.
I am elated. We have our audience, which gets the Gen X humor, if not boomer humor, heaven forbid. But yeah, I mean, obviously, it was a thing, and I'm looking very forward to see what the Chinese are going to engage in the appropriate response, according to the last I heard. And I can't imagine what that might possibly be. But I will say this, going back to the first topic, in terms of award names, I'm going for the Howies. That's my vote. And so if we have future awards, I'd like to throw that up for consideration.
Well, the Howies may work. I was thinking of something state line, state focused. I was thinking about the FMEs, or something like that. But who knows? But my favorite the Chinese spy balloon came all too quickly in my mind. And my only thought is that, part of me wanted them to shoot it down when it was still over land. But I don't think they would have shot it down over Montana, because if it would have landed in Montana, then that would have meant they would have gotten it away from Kevin Costner's ranch. So, and we know that those guys don't play. The guy who was the drunk kid in Good Will Hunting is now a badass. So, what can we say about that? And the woman who was the wife in the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movies is just completely tarted it up. So, I mean, what can you do? But, I really like the fact that they shot it down over Myrtle Beach. While a bunch of rednecks are out there looking, they get to all go America. And then, and then they forgot that it was Joe Biden who shot the fucking thing down. And now they're all pissed.
Right. Well, especially now that we know that there were 3 that floated through the House when Donald Trump was president. So they can't even do because remember earlier the week it was Trump would have shot it down because, MAGA. And I was like, yeah, no, he didn't.
Yeah. Well, let's get to our first Howie Award, shall we? And I'm going to go with Howie Awards because, damn it, I like that right now. Howie works on so many levels, I believe. Steve, I'm gonna ask you. I think I'm gonna go in order of how these appear on my notebook of destiny. Your 4 first, Steve, and then my 4, and then Jason's 4. I think we're going Steve, Bill, Jason.
So we're not going to alternate, huh?
Well, yes, we are alternating.
Okay.
You do one, I do one, Jason does one.
Snake draft.
You can see, ladies and gentlemen, we work very hard in pre-production.
Did you get it from the Prep Burger service? Where are song parodies?
So Steve, your first award, please.
Well, my first award, and Jason opened up the door to Gen X references. So I've nicknamed this award my Burning Down the House Award. And based on the state of the House of Representatives, the House part is pretty appropriate. And this one is a tie. We usually name one person or organization, but I couldn't pick between the National Republican Party, the State Republican Party, and whatever the hell the Howard County Republican Party is. I don't even know if there is one, but fine, we'll throw them in the dumpster fire too. Now, this isn't the first time that Republicans have screwed the pooch when they had a layup. We all remember 10 years ago when they had the clown car full of the Christine O'Donnells and the Richard Murdochs and the Todd Aikens. But I don't know about you guys, but it feels like this time around, they went next level. I mean, some of these candidates, your Mastrianos, your Carrie Lakes, I mean, we all look at politics. We do. This is what we do. Jason, you educate on this thing. And by all rights, the Republicans should have been like pushing 50-seat win in the House. They should have been sitting on 53, 54 in the Senate. They should have just been steamrolling stuff. I mean, totally. And they totally screwed it up. They did not win the Senate. The House I will get to in my next award. And in Maryland, what's left of that crew? I mean, they sent a nut job as governor, and basically, the coattails became an anchor in albatross and took down people who maybe they wouldn't win, but they got blown the hell out. And Howard County, of course, there's like one Republican left standing, Mr. David Youngman. So, it's a mess. And if you thought they learned their lesson, oh, hell to the no. The chairman of the GOP, still Ronna McDaniel, but her competition was the My Pillow guy and somebody I'd never heard of, but I'm sure they're like some MAGA wingnut. In Maryland, it was a contest between Jordana Schiffinelli, who made Dan Cox look sane, versus Andy Harris's wife, who ultimately got the job. And again, I'm sure there's some West County jabroni running the Howard County Republican Party. So, good luck in 2 years, 4 years, or whatever the hell it is, because as long as you're going to pledge fealty to the Orange God King in Mar-a-Lago, this is what you got. Have fun with it. Bill, I'm out.
Well, thank you, Steve. Again, a little more incisive than typical award commentary. So, Try the timer function on your phone.
Oh, I thought I made it. Sorry. Damn it.
Did you?
I
I'm
thought
not
I made it.
sure. I'm not sure. There was a lot there. There was a lot there to unpack. And I'm tempted to unpack it. But instead, I'm going to go to my first award, which is the turn around slowly, start walking away, then run the hell away award. And Steve and Jason, you can see where the voters are going. You can see where the voters' minds are tonight. It might be a big night for disaffected and pissed off and Republicans, because the winner of this award are the Hogan Democrats, ladies and gentlemen. As Governor Larry Hogan, fresh off of his 2 terms in office and his departure with a 70% approval rating, has again proved once beyond and for once and for all that he has the absolute shortest coattails of any Republican elected official in the state of Maryland since, say, former Governor Bob Ehrlich. So the Hogan Democrats did not go for Dan Cox. They did not really go for Kelly Schultz in the primary either, which is why we have the Hogan Republicans did not go for Kelly Schultz in the primary either, which is why Dan Cox got elected. But it was especially these Democrats in Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, on certain counties on the Eastern Shore and elsewhere, who came back, and even in Howard County, came back home and elected Wes Moore governor. So Hogan Democrats, you were a rare breed. We barely knew ye, and take your pick, take your place in the Natural History Museum next to the dodo and the saber-toothed tiger. Jason, your first award.
Great choice, Bill. It's hard to follow that.
Well, we have to. We got 10 more of these. Good
night. No, we're going after the Republicans a little bit, which is always a good sport. But I do want to spend a minute and knowing as a former writer of a blog, how you'd often get a lot of attention by speaking about specific individuals. And that's the focus of my Unforced Error Award, which could have, by the way, very easily gone, as my voice breaks, very easily gone to the CA board. However,
they might be recognized later in this show.
Stay tuned. I decided to go with our very own Senator Clarence Lamb and Delegate Courtney Watson for the reason of Bill 1023, which was put forward by the 2 aforementioned legislators in an attempt to modify the means of election for the Board of Education for Howard County, which would have made a couple of the seats appointed by the county executive based on recommendations from the county's legislative delegation. A very curious move in a number of ways, considering how we just literally changed how we elected our Board of Education members based on a bill that was put forward and passed originally from Vanessa Atterbury, also of Howard County, for those who aren't in the know. And a lot of the reasons given for this legislation was that it would help help lead to the election or the appointment of more informed individuals. If you take a look at some of the rationale for the literature or for the legislation, I found it interesting was some people commented on this bill and said, well, we really shouldn't speculate as to their motives. Okay, so it's not reflecting why they're suggesting this legislation that no one is calling for. And then you started getting things like, well, we want to start a conversation. Well, I don't start conversations with non sequiturs. So why was this a starting point for this dialogue? Well, who on earth was asking for this? And what Democrats are out there trying to limit the franchise in favor of appointments? And not to mention the fact that, well, what happens if we get a Republican county executive, which, by the way, may look a little bit daunting given the lack of a deep bench, but it could easily happen. And what happens in that situation? And plus, if you're also a fan of of disentangling the Board of Education from partisan considerations, then why on earth would you want this bill? It still boggles me to this day why it was even put forward. I would have loved to hear, I think I heard Steve talk about this in a prior episode, that would have been great to hear from Delegate Atterbury to see what her take on this was, since we really just implemented, the structure underneath her legislation over the past couple of cycles. So yeah, it was just a ridiculous, unforced error. There was no need for it, but Lamb and Watson did what they did. So that's my first pick.
Very well played. And man, we are bringing the commentary with these. So the bill that nobody asked for, wanted, or cared about. Apparently not even the people who wrote it, or did they?
All excellent.
Sure. Steve, it's back over to you as we go through round 2.
Okay, well, I'm going to open up my round 2 with the award I call With Your Crown Came Nothing award. And for those of you who don't get that reference, it's a Metallica song from the 90s. Now, Metallica fans would probably want to forget that there was a Metallica in the 90s. This was the post-Black album period. But much like 90s Metallica, someday we will all have the honor and pleasure of forgetting our awardee, one Kevin McCarthy, who became Speaker of the House after 15 votes, after giving up everything, including I don't know what. I mean, somewhere out there, Marjorie Taylor Greene has a car. Instead of having fuzzy dice on her rearview mirror, it's Kevin McCarthy's nuts. And there is no fuzz on them because they have no fuzz on them.
Freshly
Kevin
shot.
McCarthy, if this were Game of Thrones, Kevin McCarthy would reek.
Why are we talking about Kevin McCarthy's nuts?
Because he has no
Lord, it's Sunday morning. It should be, you should be in church.
Let's get that photo up. We have that photo?
Bill, I've come here to hand out whoop ass and chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of bubble gum. So Kevin McCarthy, this one's for you. He is reeked from Game of Thrones. He has zero, zilch, nada. He is being led by whatever part of the body you want to call out. And that is the result of the dumpster fire, my first award. I could also name this award to Kevin McCarthy, congratulations, or something. I mean, he has to put up with George Santos, okay? Anybody who doesn't have the stones to boot that Jay Brown out of Congress, he's got nothing. So there's my award. Call it what you want, but Kevin McCarthy, whatever.
Well put, Steve. Well put, Steve. Even though I'm not sure if we could be sued for talking about someone's nuts. But maybe I don't think we can. If it's a public figure's nut.
Excuse me. I've read both of your blogs in the past. That was some mild shit compared to some of the torching.
That was then. This is now.
You've got a book coming out.
I do. Actually, I have 3.
You tell me you're going to lighten up and not go for the jugular or for the belt or below it or way below it?
I never talked about anyone's nuts. I never did. I mean, I just called all the posts myself. Never did that appear, but I'm glad it did here though. And and for those of you who are still watching, but this is why it's the award show. This stuff happens. This is that unscripted thing. This is better than slapping the taste out of someone's mouth.
Have you seen that show, Bill, on cable? The slap contest?
Oh, the hard slap contest. Don't even get me going on that. That's trash shows call that trash. Big Brother calls that show trashy. All right, but my next award, speaking of trashy, my next award, and staying in the same vein, and again, we know what these voters are thinking. It's that career went down the shitter quickly award. And the winner of that is former Howard County executive and former, not once, not twice, but three-time Republican nominee for Howard County executive, former state senator and Howard County council member, Alan Kittleman.
Who?
So for his last ride, and here we go with the first professional wrestling reference of the night. Just like in his time in ECW, when Terrible Terry Funk would come out to the Eagles song Desperado, cracking his bullwhip, The man was in his mid-50s and competing for and winning world championships because it was him against the world. So Alan Kittleman staged a some would say chaotic campaign for Howard County Executive in 2022. So for what would be ostensibly his last ride, would he go out on a high note? Would he look at all of the things, all of the accomplishments, legislative and otherwise, of his time in public service? Would he rely upon his integrity to state a case of, of supposed corruption and avarice on the part of the Ball administration? Or was he just going to fall into the gutter and roll around in the slop like the rest of them? If you said B, you're right. The Republican Party, never failing to astound, brought us an Alan Kittleman who was sharp, bitter, mean, and just frankly, completely against character of what he had portrayed himself to be in public for 2.5 decades. However, people who know him in a little bit more private sense would say that was the real guy coming out. So here's to you, Alan. You went out on a low note, and how's that taste for you, bud? That, ladies and gentlemen, is that career went down the shitter award for 2023, for 2022. Well earned. Bravo. Jason, over to you.
Just real quick. I mean, can you imagine that if he had run in the same cycle that Hogan did? Now, I mean, I think the fundraising gap would have been too much, and Kittleman clearly wasn't positioned where the party was. But can you imagine an alternate universe where Alan Kittleman is elected governor of Maryland, finished serving his second term? I mean, he would probably be put forward as, a potential fresh face for the Republican Party, and maybe being seen as someone who may be interesting in 2024. But instead, he's doing whatever the hell Alan Kittleman does, I suppose. I have no idea.
Steve, Jason, I unearthed a blog post where I had actually posited that very thing.
Wow.
He could have went the Agnew. He could have done the Agnew.
The full Agnew?
The full Agnew from 7 years from head of the Parkville Lions Club to vice president of the United States. He could have done that. He could have been a contender. And instead, he's just
Contender
a good old boy, never doing no harm.
Yeah, well, another one bites the dust. But
over to you, Jason.
Yeah, no big loss. I do want to again, I'm going to keep it local on this one because we keep it local here. We talk about weather, sports, traffic. So
28. And it is 10:28.
There it is.
Right now on this cul-de-sac, it's pretty quiet. So going with the Homer Simpson Bridge Burner Award, we've all seen the meme. This one goes out to what I like to call the local dirtbag left. Now, technically speaking, they may not.
Who does that not include?
Well, that's a lot of people, but I have some specific people in mind. And this really comes down to not the Chapo Trap House sort of, they swear when they, when they make their points. They're earthy, they're gritty. Because who the fuck does that? But I mean, the folks I'm thinking about, and let's say they're largely aligned with the progressive Democrats of Howard County organization, whatever the hell that is. People just having no conception of the value and actually building relationships, forming relationships. Actually, I took a look at a lot of their candidates ran on a slate for the Democratic Central Committee. And if you take a look at the slate, there were some actually fairly reasonable ideas that were put forth in there, wanting to sort of restrict the power and influence of money in our elections and all good stuff. But when you've got people in that organization going out, saying untruths, saying ridiculous things like how a certain local activist who we all know has blood on her hands based on her employer, and her employer is not an arms dealer, at least last I checked. So I'm really not certain what the rationale was for a lot of this name calling. But they have really, I don't know. I think they're making parodies of themselves, and to the point where, I mean, they almost are a laughable rendition of what a real left would look like in Howard County, which is very sad and very unfortunate that they exist. And frankly, I want to take credit or blame, I guess, where it's due. I do feel bad for giving one of them another entree to Howard County politics by hooking them up with the mall yet juggernaut in the Board of Education race for District 1, which apparently is going to be open again. But nonetheless, I do think that this dirtbag left rightly deserves this bridge burner award, just because that's what they do. That's it for me.
Okay, so dirtbags, you know who you are.
You know exactly who they are.
We'll see them. We'll see them flaming on about 5 minutes after the post goes up, Bill.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the comment section already.
Yeah, because they definitely will start clutching pearls and losing their shit. So
they're like Debbie Downer.
I mean, all the entire Democratic Party in this county and frankly state clutches its pearls. I mean, moral outrage, just all the moral outrage. But some are more morally outraged than others.
I'd rather hear more about feline AIDS.
Exactly. My thoughts exactly. Well, and with that, we're at the halfway point. So let's see what other rare maladies can be brought up. What other comments? Perhaps there'll be a commercial about perineal health. Who knows what's going to happen in this second half. But I would say that the beverages are flowing freely here at the award center. And so, Steve, while Jason and I get another round, it's over to you for your third award of the evening, please.
Well, thank you, Bill. My third award, I'm kind of looking forward to this and looking forward to some commentary.
Of course you are.
Jason.
I know you are.
Goes by the handle Spartan Considerations. And this award, I had several names for it, but I settled on the Charlie's Angels Award. And yes, it goes to the Michigan Three. That would be Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, and Attorney General Dana Nessel, who are the three baddest of badasses in the election cycle of 2022. And before anybody says I'm being a total sexist by comparing three, elected officials to a 70s, jiggle TV show, they did the pose at a campaign event. So they themselves are down with it, and I'm down with them, because not only did they smack down MAGA, I mean, they pick your finishing maneuver, they put it on those clowns. And oh, by the way, flip the legislature for the first time in 40 years or something? Yes, great for Westmore, did great. Raphael Warnock, great. Everybody talks about Josh Shapiro, but when you want a hell of a story for the cycle, look no further than the Wolverine State, because those three whooped ass, kicked ass, handled their business, and with Debbie Stabenow rolling out, And with that, Jason, I'm going to let you drop in because I'm heading into your home turf. And oh, by the way, to our listener who keeps referring to our show as Ford, Michigan because of Bill's and my man crush, yes, we're guilty as charged. Thank you.
Well, by the way, I think I'm not sure who said it, so I don't want to attribute a responsibility if it's misplaced. But I happen to recall someone that may be in this podcast talking about how much they liked Gretchen Whitmer's voice, and I will say this, coming from Michigan, where our accent is notoriously sexy, I could, of course, completely understand that. But I mean,
Michiganders,
Michiganians, some of us say, or Michiganites if you're a complete freak. But Wolverine State, oh God, that's painful.
Sorry.
But I did want to say, not my kind of Democrat. That said, I mean, I do appreciate that, electorally, Gretchen Whitmer is definitely an interesting figure, potentially on the national scene. The other folks that serve with her definitely you can attribute that to the Democrats having a very deep bench in Michigan, which is very fortunate. Yeah, I mean, you do like the early brand that Gretchen Whitmer put out. I do recall back when she was merely a state senator representing the old East Lansing district. And I remember chasing after her business. Really, when I set up my own company many years ago, didn't come to pass. But oh well. I think her future looks bright, and I'm curious to see if she ends up on a ticket next time around. So thanks for calling out some of our Michigan heroes.
Well, and I could also call it Mallory McMorrow, who's another badass. But Bill, just really quick for Jason, Stabenow seat. Who you got, Jason?
Oh man, I don't have anyone for Stabenow seat yet. I mean, I'm still trying to. I met former Senator Stabenow when she was a county council person, and she didn't radiate someone who would be a national figure necessarily. Just very nice and very affable. I would really need to probably spend a little bit more time taking a look at which figure is most likely to make that run. I mean, it'd be interesting, but I don't have a choice yet. I'm not sure if you do or not. Do you?
I don't. There's a lot out there. It's going to be one of those very interesting primaries, although California looks like it's going to say hold my beer going after that Feinstein seat. So we could have some fun times here going forward into this next election cycle. But enough about Michigan. We'll go back to somewhere else in the world. Bill?
Well, thank you. Well, thank you. I'm glad. We're going to have to get this back on track because the piano player was drunk and was going to start playing the music, but went not to. So now I've got to speed things up. Thanks, guys. So, by the way, Whitmer 28. Woo! I'm just leaving it at that. And I know, and the guy who posts that we're Forward Michigan is a friend of mine, and he's not afraid. Big fan.
Steve no, Jones he's not.
Awesome. No. And he'll mix it up with some of the other commenters. I have faith.
No, I like him a lot.
I'm going to keep mine simple for my third round. It's the Rookie of the Year award, and you can say this is state. You can say this is federal, national politics on the state level, and that goes to Governor Wes Moore. And I have to admit, here is Bill eating his humble pie.
Same.
For this one. After the whole Ben Jealous debacle in 2018, and also my own supported candidate wound up finishing 9th in a 9-person field, and was also a first-time candidate for governor who had come from outside of the political world. I already had at least 2 strikes and a third one barreling down the center of a plate about Wes Moore. And boy, was I wrong. I'm not sure it would have changed who I would have, if I would have thought about him in a more objective manner. I'm not sure it would have changed where my allegiance in the primary, but I certainly would have given him more credence and more props. And what a terrific campaign, and what a terrific job he did bringing together establishment Democrats, and also welcoming back those Hogan Democrats, as I said, and also expanding the base of the party and completely steamrolling. Oh my God, I forgot his name for a second. Dan Cox and Ms. Schiffinelli for the governor and lieutenant governor of Maryland. He's already, the governor has already started to appear on national news programs. He is exceptionally telegenic, exceptionally adept at the soundbite, breathes and glows with optimism and possibility. And, assuming that these 8 years in this state will go well, and it's hard to imagine that they won't, with Democrats having veto-proof supermajorities in both houses, the only fear will be that of overreaching, which we will invariably do. but one can count on 2 Westmore terms as governor, and then who knows what goes on come 2032 or beyond. So Governor Westmore, you win the Howie for Political Rookie of the Year. Jason, your third award.
Well, I just want to add one thing very quickly, if you don't mind. When it comes to Westmore, I may have fired off a less than diplomatic email to that campaign at some point in time, informing them how badly they would be losing to John King in the primary, which apparently didn't happen. But I want to recount. But it would be fascinating to see. Gosh, I mean, just sort of. Well, I mean, fascinating to see how the movement of the party is going to go over the next few years, especially with it looking like Senator Cardin, looking at his fundraising numbers, may be stepping down. So that could create an open seat opportunity for the U.S. Senate. But so Westmore goes in, gets elected, good for him. Not necessarily thrilled by Moore's candidacy, but I'm sure he'll be fine. Just fine. But I'm sorry, what was the question again? Third choice?
Yes, your third award.
Third award. All right. We're gonna take this into super shiny happy people mode, and we're calling this the Barry Maguire Eve of Destruction Award.
Oh my!
And
Eve of Destruction reference.
Shiny happy and Eve of Destruction. Only on Forward Maryland, ladies and gentlemen.
Sweet.
Taking it back to 65. So, and this one, actually, we have co-winners of this award. Unfortunately, for I think reasons that'll be obvious momentarily, they will not be appearing simultaneously. But we've got Vladimir Putin, as well as the Ukrainian Nazis, Azov Battalion et al., who are vying with each other for the actors most likely to bring about the end of civilization. At least in the Northern Hemisphere, maybe the Southern, I don't know. But anyway, so I would attribute a lot of concern / blame to both Putin and the Ukrainian Nazis. It's not a workers' paradise in Russia, so I'm not sure why the pro-Russia folks are so jazzed about what's going on. And frankly, I'm not so sure why we're seeing this vociferous support for a lot of Ukrainians. Beyond the fact that we're seeing a lot of German tanks that will soon be appearing in a part of the Soviet Union, I don't know. To me, it really looks a little sketchy and kind of reads like a repeat I don't want to see again. So I guess the losers in this go to Putin and the Ukrainian Nazis.
And by the way, we should all watch the new version of All Quiet on the Western Front, the German version that got nominated for the Academy Award, because that may be, I don't know, fall of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Dire, just dire. But happy thoughts. Happy thoughts.
There you go. There you go.
It's only 10 months and 25 days to Christmas. Get your list together, kids. The Hallmark Christmas ornament catalog will come out in about 3 weeks.
Sweet.
We are now turning the corner and heading for home. Is anybody here a brown-eyed handsome man? No. Anyway, our fourth and final round of awards for the evening as we begin to wrap up. So with the next to penultimate award, I don't know what we call that, the second to ultimate award, unsure. Steve, we're turning to you. I believe you have something called the MVP award.
I do, Bill. I do. Thank you. And I've been going, crossing the country, but I'm going to come home to Maryland. Hence, we are Forward Maryland. So my last award will be a Maryland specific award. And, we talked about the Stabenow seat. We talked about the Feinstein seat. Jason touched on one that we could have also mentioned, and that's the Ben Cardin seat and the potential there. And one person who, if that seat becomes open, we may want to keep an eye on is my league MVP for the 2022 election cycle in Maryland, and that is Comptroller Brooke Learman. If you can find me somebody who ran strategically, tactically, the whole 9 yards, a better campaign than Brooke Learman, let me know who it is. I'm sure there's somebody who maybe did, but it just felt like that campaign from the very beginning was just run so tight and so well, lockdown endorsements early to freeze folks out effectively, check. Raise a butt ton of money, check. Get support from pretty much every constituency within the Democratic Party, check. I mean, I don't know, I'm not a political scientist by trade. Maybe there's something that Brooke Lierman did wrong, but in my book, from what I saw, she ran one hell of a campaign. She deserved everything she got. And oh, by the way, unlike a lot of candidates, she had to run against some you could call legit competition. Tim Adams, Bill, you and I talked about the primary between her and Tim Adams. Props again to Tim Adams for the race he ran. And, the general election, she did, have to run against the one, I guess you could say, sane Republican on that statewide top of the ticket, and Barry Glassman. And Learman took them both out. And that's because I think she organized, coordinated, and she handled her business. So my league MVP from the election cycle, Maryland 2022, Brooke Lierman, comptroller. And I think that's a name we're going to be hearing a lot from as other things open up down the road.
Very good. Very well done, Steve. Way to finish strong. I'm going to try to piggyback upon that terrific job and go to my last award, which for me, somehow, this award is called the Help Them Father, for They Know Not What They Do award. And for somebody who rails about sometimes the often hyper local aspect of this statewide podcast, where we focus so much on Howard County and particularly upon the new town of Columbia, my winner of the Help Them Father, for They Know Not What They Do award, our father being Columbia founder and founding father James Rouse, the winner of this award, the Columbia Association Board of Directors. Help them, Father, for they know not what they do. So, as Steve has alluded to, I have decided to take the best, and even the next the best, of my 11 years of blog writing and form a compilation, which is what we call Land of Melting Wings, soon to be published, soon to come out sometime during 2023, possibly available on at a bookseller and certainly online. And looking forward to sharing 3 volumes of local history from the ground level to one and all. And during that time, during the 23 years I've lived in Columbia, and during my 55 years of being a Howard Countyan, the CA Board of Directors has never failed to excite, has never failed to, when they have the opportunity to do the wrong thing, they do the wrong thing. And sometimes, I mean, the blind pig gets a truffle a few times, and sometimes they do a good job. And we have had some very good CA presidents. And not to take sides in any of this latest to-do that led to the resignation of the CA president, but the board of directors sometimes outsmarts itself, sometimes does things contrary to its own best interest, sometimes gets too caught up in its own procedures and methodologies of doing things, that it forgets that its primary purpose is to serve the residents of Columbia. And that when you do, as some members of the board of directors have been drawn into the muck by some of these Columbia activists who are just doing silly things in order to foster their own self-interest of having the CA president keep her position, so that possibly there are some more development that can come to Columbia. When you roll in the muck with people who don't, with people who don't mind being mucky, then y'all get dirty. And the CA Board of Directors, God bless it, cannot help itself but to get itself dirty from time to time and to roll in the muck. So therefore, the Help Them Father, for They Know Not What to Do award for failing to stay above the fray, the CA Board of Directors. Jason, bring this mess home.
Well, I would like to say 2 things. first, I just want to add to the thoughts on Barry Glassman. He reached out to me when I was a relatively new resident of Howard County, mind you. I'd started my blog, and I was maybe in the first year of it. And this guy, I had no reason for him to reach out to me. I wasn't covering Harford County politics, really. So it's clear that he had this idea to run for a long time. He was laying the groundwork for it, and he was probably the best possible Republican candidate they could have chosen. And so the fact that Brooke Lierman was able to defeat him, even in a cycle that was good for Democrats, I think does speak to her potential strength in seeking future offices. And I absolutely, by the way, agree wholeheartedly with your assessment on the CA board. I wonder how much of it is genuine incompetence versus a more malicious incompetence. I don't know, but hopefully we'll be able to have more conversations on this topic in the near future and maybe get some more illumination as to what's going on.
Hopefully in the very near future.
Yeah, hopefully with our just beloved community organization. But I did want to end with my final award of the night. The who is this Jagweed again award?
Jagweed.
It is. It's proper, all fitting and proper. I think it goes to a couple things really. Well, I will say this: the winner of this "Who is this Jagweed again" award goes to Howard County's own Spartan Considerations, whoever that is.
What? What? This is a first.
Wow.
Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why this bastard Sparty deserves it. So many just rude emails and text messages sent out, usually first thing in the morning, sometimes at night. But I mean, always with a point, maybe a little bit sharp 2 points sometimes. So I do want to recognize Sparty for letting his opinions be known in private communications with a number of officials, elected and not so much. And in particular, I just want to have a moment where I can adult very quickly, not in the shorn testicle sort of conversation, but where my
all those halcyon minutes when we had ignored testicles.
Do you remember back when we weren't discussing those?
Remember back 40 minutes ago.
But I will say this: there have been a number of people who got it and deserved it. And there was one case where there was, I think, a miscommunication. Well, one person thought we were talking about our relative expertise on housing policy. And then there was a situation where it was actually a conversation about our ability to operate as a political operative. And I think this other person didn't, I think there was a miscommunication in that regard. And so Sparty would like to deliver one formal apology to a Jenny S. of the greater Columbia area. And just want to let you know, I'm sorry, there was obviously a miscommunication there. That's coming from Sparty. And he's still a fan of your stuff, generally speaking, when you do publish your insights, which I haven't seen as much lately. I guess the editorial schedule, we're seeing less coming from that publication. But I do hope that this individual keeps writing and keeps fighting the good fight. So again, this is a naughty award going to Spartan Considerations. Who is this Jagweed again? Hopefully they will not appear on this list next year.
Who has appeared to accept the award for Spartan Considerations, Jason?
We couldn't get a hold of them. Could not get a hold of them.
Bastards.
You couldn't get Slats to come in and do it?
Slats couldn't do it. Well, you know what the thing was? I think Sparty was out there. He's really promoting Trintellix so heavily these days. Trintellix for depression. And so it's he's almost impossible to get. So maybe one day around the road, Slats is overseas, God knows what country, and God knows what he's doing. But hopefully we'll see. We'll hear about him again.
I didn't see that coming. Don't know how to describe what happened.
Oh, I want to hear I want to see the comments, or if we had a chat feed, like, how can you be so critical of other people, huh? Were we that critical of all other people? No, we were not.
But I wonder, I'm not going to say the obvious. Mm-hmm. And Steve, I don't want you to say it either.
Okay.
I want to know if anyone figures it out, or if they care. to even respond. Because despite, and Jason, you know this, well, I don't know if I've told you this, but Steve and I talked about this recently. Remember about a year and a half ago when this humble podcast was being ripped for having only 22 YouTube subscribers?
Mhm.
Well, now we have 51, which is as much as that software developers podcast had blog had when it ended, as well as that gentleman who does some sort of a second or third string substitution on a local radio's channel.
Wait a minute. Stop.
That podcast
Are you talking about someone who does housing?
Possibly.
Shockingly,
that podcast last time.
Today.
But last time I checked, it had just about as many followers. So my word to those people, and I'm sure that some of them are out there watching or listening to this, is piss off. So but I wonder, back in those days when we had great blogs that roamed the plains of Howard County, Tale of Two Cities, Hoko Rising, the Hoko Chow, the food blog, and Columbia Compass, and Howard County Hayduke, and chief amongst them, some of the biggest mammoths in that herd were Spartan Considerations and the 53. I wonder if anybody out there remembers who wrote some of those.
I just want to add one thing. So you said we had 51 subscribers?
Yes, on YouTube.
On just YouTube.
We have many more people who watch and follow on Google and Buzzsprout and the like. iTunes. They do use the website.
I mean, we have as many subscribers just on one platform that Opie, formerly of Opie and Anthony Radio, that's what he gets in his morning shows. He gets about 50 people who show up. And this is someone who is a national figure, had an audience of millions. We have a more focused, dare I say, precious audience. And in that regard, I mean, the fact that we got that number, it's pretty darn good.
Yeah. Hey, Bill. We've taken a walk a little bit down memory lane. We have commentary from Sparty, who has provided a mea culpa. We had a Slats reference. Do we have any commentary or anything from the Marshmallow Man?
Marshmallow Man has been out on, he's been out touring the world. He took the advice of, the name Spiro Agnew was mentioned before, and also popular around the time of Spiro Agnew was the charismatic Grand Wizard of Wrestling. And, Marshmallow Man has gone out scouting and searching himself in the same places where the Grand Wizard is looking for talent. So he's been to Central America, South America, Far East, the East Indies, the West Indies, and eventually will tour the Indian subcontinent.
I was going to say, I'll wait for the subcontinent reference. There we go.
The subcontinent has to always is a place where one finds talent. And so once the Marshmallow Man returns from those travels, I believe it'll be just in time for book publication, and there will be, and here's a big announcement, there will be fresh Marshmallow Man content added to volume 3 of Land and Melting Wings under a chapter entitled What Did I Miss? So things that happened, special things that happened after 2019 and the end of 53 Beers on Tap. The Marshmallow Man got something for you.
Oh, that's, I'm great he's wandering the world David Carradine style. I mean, I was worried he was in a coma or something. So that's great news.
Yeah, it was not. Yeah. I mean, David Carradine style was a good way to phrase it. I mean, very, very David Carradine. Not unlike, I was thinking more of the Ethan Hawke character in the Marvel series Moon Knight, who in the first scene breaks wine glasses and puts them in his shoes and then walks on them and then walks halfway across Europe on broken glass. So, more like that, because Marshmallow Man and Ethan Hawke, you can't tell them apart. So, very, very much like that. Very spiritual.
Okay. See, I was thinking Bill Bixby from the old Incredible Hulk series myself.
Yeah.
Don't make him angry. You won't like him when he's angry. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we bring the 2022 end of year Forward Maryland Award Show to a close. Jason, any final thoughts?
Oh gosh, I guess. Well, number one, it's thanks for having me back. It's glad to be back. And it just moments like this when you really get to sit around and discuss the all of the goings on and ne'er-do-wells of the local scene. It's always a lot of fun. So I just want to say thanks.
Always a pleasure, and we'll have you on as a tri-host sooner rather than later, I hope.
Well, in my life, I always aspired to be, a third mic like a Jimmy Norton, and I feel as though I'm getting close to that lifestyle. So,
I like the Monday Night Football analogy with Howard Cosell, Frank Gifford, and Dandy Don. Except I'm not sure who might be who in that situation. I think I wind up being Frank Gifford, which is scary.
That is scary.
That's a lot to debate there.
Yeah. Steve, any final thoughts on your end?
No, besides the fact that, great show, always good to have the OG back in the house. Just really good to get those insights and, some of the unique humor that you get from one Jason Booms and some of the references that I sometimes have to Google to make sure I got them right. So amusing and thought-provoking at the same time. Always good to have you on board, Sparty.
Well, thank you. At least I was no comparison to Dennis Miller, which, would be painful. So thank you.
That was a bad year on Monday Night Football.
That was.
Oh, God.
That was really a bad year. I mean, Tony Kornheiser at least lasted, I think, 2 seasons on there.
Well, don't forget, there is the Rush Limbaugh period. So,
But that wasn't on Monday Night Football, though. That was on NFL Countdown.
No, wasn't he on
the morning show? I don't think
he was on the actual show sometimes. Okay.
Yes, and lots of Rush Limbaugh's commentary has really held up over the years, hasn't it? Does anybody even know that he even lived at this point? Which just goes
Alex
to show
Jones
you
now?
were an asshole.
The Alex Jones.
Nobody pays attention to you. You're dead. Now worms are eating you. So go to hell, pig. Anyway, this is our wow. Anyway, this is our informal anniversary. We're glad we've been with you and you've been with us. We have some things that we have to talk about. We do have a great show in the planning. I don't think I really want to talk about the possible subject matter for next week's show we want to make sure that it can happen first, but you'll hear about it by the end of the week. And then our brain trust, our production crew are going to be huddling in the not too distant future to talk about how we can continue to keep this fine podcast production fresh and hard hitting for the year to come.
Are we meeting with Sammy Brown Muffins?
That I didn't, not hard hitting in that way. Plus, you always forget to drink water. That's what I keep hearing about you.
Oh, damn.
So, look, we're in our 50s, guys. We've got to think about these things. So, a little men's health tips that we weren't expecting on today's podcast. just a whole lot that we weren't expecting on today's podcast. Thank God all the musical numbers canceled. So with that, we bid you all out there in viewer and listener land a fond adieu. For Jason and Steve, my name is Bill. You have been watching or listening to another edition of Forward Maryland. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. Take care.